Good morning. Welcome to the Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Szerman on KHTS, FM 98.1, AM 1220. Thank you guys for tuning in this morning. I appreciate it. Got an interesting show this morning, a little bit different than usual. We're going to get into some market stuff, but mostly today, we're going to talk about one of my favorite topics, which is free money. I'm a fan. I'm a big fan. And there's a lot of money out there to buy or sell real estate. And people often don't understand that it's out there and that they can get it and they don't take advantage of it. And it's always a shame when they miss it. So today is going to be all about free money to buy a house. If you're a renter and you're looking to get into owning a house, which you should be thinking about if you're a renter, especially in our area, where appreciation is at, we will literally give you money to help you buy a house. That's straight. Also, if you're looking to sell a house, we have a program, same sort of thing. We will give you money to sell a house. So this is the money episode, so you might want to listen to this. First half of the show is going to be all about money to buy a house. Second half of the show is going to be all about money to sell a house and how these things work and why we do it and how we do it and all that other good stuff. But today, literally, free money. So tell a friend if you have somebody who's looking to buy or sell or maybe thinking about buying or selling in the not too distant future, even if it's a couple of years from now, we'll still be around. But today's a show you're going to want to listen to because today is all about free money. So let's get started without any further ado. Right, the California Mortgage Relief Program, if you guys have heard me talk about that over the last year or so, was a great program. It's over now, but it was a fantastic program. And what it did is we got $1 billion in California from the American Rescue Plan, which is a federal plan. So thank you, Biden administration, for that. We got $1 billion in California that went directly to homeowner defaults. So if you were in default, let's say you were $75,000 behind because of COVID, you could put an application into these guys. You did it all online, and they would take about 30 days to get it approved, and then they would pay your overage. You didn't pay it back. I shouldn't say overage, default. They'd pay your default, and you wouldn't have to pay it back. And it maxed out at $80,000, and it was a great program, and we loved it. And unfortunately, they are now officially out of money, and as of last week, they are not accepting any more applications. So that program is over. But I'm pointing that out to you guys because that's the kind of thing that is out there. And I got a call from a client last night who said, "I wish I'd known." I said, "I wish you'd listened to the show." Because then you'd know, because they would have been a perfect candidate for it, but the program's closed down now. So we'll figure it out. We'll find them something else. But I only tell you about that, one, to let you know that program, which we've been talking about quite a lot. We got a couple of $1 million out of them, I think, for clients. We had a lot of people through that program, is over. But there's always other stuff. That's one of the better programs we've ever seen, but there's always better stuff. So let's get into some background stuff, and then we're going to talk about free money to buy a house, and then the second half of the show will be free money to sell a house. So little background stuff. First couple of things you need to know, which are a little foundational, so you'll understand. This is not complicated. It's giving away money. I think you guys can figure it out. But just so you understand some of this, let's take a look at, first of all, what's going on in the market. Right now, as of April 2024, we have the April numbers in, the median sales price in the Santa Clarita Valley is now $815,000. It's up $15,000 from last month. So last month, median sales price was $800,000. This month, it's $815,000. And that's condos, townhouses, everything. When you break it down a little bit finer, what you'll find is that single-family home median prices are down $51,000 from March to April, which is a heck of a slide in 1 month. They're down to $859,000. So it's actually, but it is still up 5% year over year. So think about this, and this is going to be important when we talk about this in a minute. The median sales price for April in the Santa Clarita Valley is down to $859,000. It slid $51,000 in the last 30 days. In March, it was $910,000. And that's 1 month variance. It's nothing to worry about. It'll go up, it'll go down. It's when you look for the trend lines. But even at $859,000, even after a $51,000 slide in 1 month, we are still 5% higher in April of 2024 in the housing values than we were in April of 2023. And that's the number to pay attention to, not so much the month-to-month variation, but the year-to-year variation. And in condos, very similar thing. We're down to $570,000, which is $33,000 down from March of this year. In condos, $570,000 is the average, but that's still 14% higher than condo sales were in April of 2023. So houses are 5% higher month to month, and condos are 14% higher, despite falling $51,000 and $33,000 on average together. Now, the other big number to look at, we can do this for the San Fernando Valley as well, but the other big number to look at are the new listings, and this really tells the tale, because the new listings were up to 339 new listings in April. That's 30% higher than this time last year. Think about that for a minute. That's 36% more listings, and we're still very low. They're only 339. It's an awful lot small amount for a valley our size. Also, there's the number of active listings is up 25% year over year, and yet the number of pending sales is down 25% year over year. So new listings up 36%, active listings up 25%, pending sales down 25%. So what does all that mean? What that means is some of the housing is now starting to come back to the market. So we're starting to see more houses start to come on the market. Now, it's not there's not a glut of houses. The market's not reversing itself. It's still very much a seller's market. We're going to drill down a little further before we're done on this topic, but today. But you've got to kind of keep in mind that what is going on is we're starting to see prices stagnate. And the market's starting to fracture. Those people who have houses who are well priced and the house is in great shape, they will be able to write their own ticket. The people who have houses that are in less than wonderful shape and are trying to catch that higher market, they're going to have a problem. That wasn't true a month ago, wasn't true 2 months ago, but it is true now. In other words, to give you the headline here, the real estate market is starting to soften. Please don't send me emails telling me that I said the real estate market is falling. It is not. It is merely starting to soften. And the reason for that, there are two very simple things. The interest rate is way higher than it needs to be right now. It's over 7.25% for most people. It's hovering between 7.25% and 7.5% for most loans. If you have excellent credit, you're putting a lot of money down, you can get it down to around 7%. Sam at the Mortgage Hub could probably get you down to a little under 7%. He just had me put together for an agent in the office last week at 6.75%. That was pretty good when the going rate is well over 7%. But that is the first thing, is because interest rates are at a 23-year high. The Fed has kept them that way, and we got a problem. That is just a problem for us, and that's damaging an already weak buyer pool. That's the first thing. The second thing is people who have waited because they're waiting to sell because they're going to go buy something else because of the interest rate. I think you're getting a little frustrated waiting for the Fed to lower the interest rate. We're all frustrated. You know, at the beginning of this year, we thought they'd lower the interest rate 3 to 5 times during 2024 because 2023 was so tragic for the real estate market. Good for prices, bad for volume, and we're still low on volume. But what's happened instead is the Fed has, for various reasons, and I'm going to get to my conclusion here in a minute, has kept that rate high. And because of that, there are fewer buyers in the market than there otherwise would be. There are also fewer houses than there otherwise would be. So you have an entire market that's shrinking by supply and demand. The entire thing is shrinking. And right now, the supply side is still winning. But that is starting to change. In other words, if you have a house to sell, you better start thinking about it because prices are going to start to weaken. They're not coming down tomorrow, but they are starting to weaken. If you're looking at buying a house, we're going to talk about how you can make that still work for you because you're probably better off waiting a little bit because interest rates will hopefully be a bit lower and prices will hopefully be lower, but we don't know that for sure. And I'm going to give you some statistics before we're done. They were surprising to me. I'll put it to you that way. So, yeah, the conclusion here, and this is true in the San Fernando Valley numbers are very similar. But what we're learning here is that prices across the board in our area are just ever so slightly starting to weaken. They're not weak, they're not falling, they're just starting to weaken, which is a step toward normalization. So that's what that means, that's what those numbers mean, and that's what we can kind of infer from that. So let's talk about a couple of articles. There are 3 articles out there. I'm just going to give you the headlines because this tells the story. It's exactly what we're talking about. 3 headlines from day before yesterday. CBS, inflation just fell. Will mortgage rates fall now? There was the inflation rate dropped by 1/100%, or 1/10 of 1%, sorry. Not exactly a big change. It dropped to 3.4 from 3.5. The Fed's goal is still 2%, so we're still way ahead of that. The Fed's not going to be releasing the interest rate anytime soon. So 3 headlines. CBS, inflation just fell or mortgage rates fall? The answer is not anytime soon because federal funds rate has remained stuck at a 23-year high. So no, the rates aren't going to fall despite the fact we got slightly better inflationary numbers. They weren't good enough. Market Watch, builders are slashing home prices to keep buyers interested as confidence in marketing wanes for the first time since November of 2023. And this is the big number. Builder applications for single-family homes across the country fell 0.4% in April. They haven't fallen in the better part of a year, almost 2 years, going up every month, and now they're starting to fall. Again, it's nothing to panic about, but it is yet another sign that the market is starting to, you can say weaken, I would say normalize. Marketplace.org, the problem of sticky inflation resides with housing. This is the big one. This problem with sticky inflation resides with housing. According to Osmond Goolsbee, who was on President Obama's team and is now the president and CEO of the Federal Reserve Bank in Chicago. According to him, it would be hard for me, this is his quote, it would be hard for me to see that we could get to the 2% overall target unless home prices inflation come down substantially from where it is right now. I don't think the Fed is going to let up until housing prices fall. So that's one of the luminaries of the Fed, the Federal Reserve, telling you they're not going to bring down interest rates until housing prices start to fall. And in other parts of the country, not Southern California, they've been up and down, and we're now going into another down cycle. I mean, if you're looking to buy a big house in San Francisco, now's not a bad time because those prices are starting to soften in a big way. We're not seeing the same thing here quite yet, but we will. And I try to keep ahead of this stuff for you guys so you can see the future. So there are 3 headlines. Inflation just fell. Will mortgage rates fall? And the answer is no. Builders are slashing home prices to keep buyers interested. And the problem with sticky inflation resides with the housing market. Housing market and it's the ancillary things that come out, other things that come out of it, make up typically, when you talk to your economists, talk about this, around 33% of the GNP for the country. So housing is a big, big component of the economy. Obviously, it's a big part of your personal economy. It is of mine. Most people, the mortgage payment is the highest payment they make every month. It also keeps a roof over your head. It's also the biggest investment you have. So housing is a big deal. It's key to most economic success. Also, I quote this all the time. There was an AARP survey some years ago that concluded that it was 98 or 99% of all people they talked to, and it was a good-sized sample, concluded that they were going to need, not want, need the equity they built up over time in a house to be able to retire. Not retire well, but at all. So if you don't want to keep working until you're 85, 90 years old and drop dead at your desk, then you might want to consider getting a house if you don't already have one. And you can call us for that. We can help you out. So let me show you how all this works. So that's kind of the market. So the market's starting to normalize. It's starting to weaken a little bit. Interest rates are still high. That is not a recipe for success. That is a recipe for home price decline because buyers are still facing the same headwinds. It is still as expensive for buyers to borrow money. In fact, it's more expensive. It got more expensive 2 weeks ago. It's come down a little bit this week, but it's going to stay over 7 for a while, I fear. And that is not a recipe for success. And that is what the Fed is after. The Fed is, I'm sure, I can just feel this in my mind, the Fed is not going to let up on this until they start to push down housing prices. And keeping the interest rate high is a sure way to do that. It's surprising it hasn't happened up to now. I think that's the biggest surprise for the Fed. So that's what's going on in the market. That's kind of where we're at with real estate. Now let's come back a little bit. Let's take a little bit larger view of this. I want to talk about the economy as a whole, and then we're going to get into how we give you free money, which is I know everybody's listening for. But it's important you guys understand this stuff. The Federal Reserve Bank of New York, according to them, household debt reached $17.5 trillion in the fourth quarter of 2023, and delinquency rates are rising. We're seeing more and more foreclosures come through my office. You guys know we do free foreclosure defense, and we're seeing more and more of those. It's been keeping us awfully busy. Total household debt, according to the Federal Reserve, total household debt rose by $212 billion to reach $17.5 trillion by the fourth quarter of 2023. We don't have this year's numbers yet. That's just the end of last year. Credit card balances also increased by $50 billion to $1.13 trillion over the quarter, while mortgage balances rose by $112 billion to $12.25 trillion. This country is currently carrying $12.25 trillion, the highest it has ever been in mortgage debt. Auto loan balances also rose by $12 billion to $1.6 trillion, but basically, and delinquency rates are up. So what we're seeing here is the amount of debt is rising. The amount of debts that amount of debt that American citizens are carrying is rising. More and more Americans have more debt now than they did prior to the pandemic, substantially more. If I hear one more report on television that tells me how great the economy is, I am going to scream because it is not. What the Fed is doing is they're sacrificing whole segments of the economy to support other segments of the economy. And they're mostly right now looking at housing. And I think that's been true for the last year. They just haven't really come out and said it. They are determined to crush the housing market. That is what the Fed is determined to do. They have decided that housing prices are too high, whether they're right or not is a whole other argument, and they're going to keep this interest rate high until they reverse the upward trend in housing prices. It's already starting to reverse in other parts of the country. It has been for months, and now it's starting to hit the West Coast, which is we see more real estate bought and sold than any place else, so it's more important that it hit here than any place else. And it is. So it's also thrown the rental rates way out of whack, too. We're going to talk about that today. So we got a market starting to normalize. We have Americans carrying way, way, way too much debt and much more debt than they've ever had before. And to add to that, let's talk about the bankruptcy rate. This is something I watch all the time. Thank you, Linda, in Lou Esmond's office for giving me this data. She's always helpful with this sort of stuff. So thank you, Linda, if you're listening. Right. Bankruptcies have risen 16% this year over the previous year. Bankruptcy filings rose 16% during the 12-month period ending March 31st, 2024. According to statistics released by the Administrative Office of the U.S. Courts, total filings rose by 467,774 new cases, compared with 403,273 cases reporting during the year ending March 31st, 2023. So this year, bankruptcy filings are up 16%. Business filings, business bankruptcies, and this is a terrifying number, have increased 40.4%. From 14,467 in March 2023 to 20,316 in the newest report. Business Non-business filings are up by 15.1%, and business filings are up by 40.4%. When you throw in all the non-business filings, it's actually 16%. So what are we learning? We're learning that the real estate market is stabilizing. The Fed is determined to drive the prices down. The amount of debt that Americans are carrying is way, way, way higher than it has ever been, ever. And the amount of bankruptcies is also well on the rise. These are not recipes for a healthy economy. But for everything, there is a solution. You just have to look long enough, you'll find it. But there is a solution out there. We just got to put our heads together to find it. So I tell you what, let's go to the break. Let's hear from some of the sponsors. We love hearing from them. And again, when you guys do deal with the sponsors, when you do use them for anything, you do support the show and you do support the station. We always appreciate that. So please do so. But hang through the commercials, and when we come back, we will talk all about free money. I promise. We've gotten through the hard part of the class. The rest of it gets a whole lot easier. We're just talking about free money when we get back. So listen through the break. When we come back, I'm going to tell you how you get free money, literally free money, to go buy a house. I'm Rich Szerman. You're listening to the Real Estate Fix on KHTS FM 98.1 AM 1220, your hometown station. Listen to the break, and we'll be right back. Hey everybody, you're listening to the Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Szerman, on KHTS 98.1 AM 1220, your hometown station. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you for listening through the break. Okay, we're getting to the good part. This is the free money to buy a house part. So you don't need to get out a pen. You can, well, actually you do. Write this down. My phone number, 661-714-1400. Again, that's 661-714-1400. That is my personal cell phone number. I give it out every week. You're welcome to call me on that. You call me at 2 in the morning if you want to. It's fine. I really don't mind. If I don't answer, just send me a text and I'll call you back as soon as I can, because I do sleep on occasion. And sometimes with other clients, and sometimes I just don't answer the phone. But most of the time, I'm going to call you back. So I suspect we'll get some calls because, again, free money. Right, so I'm going to read you one last little piece of information, and then we're going to get into the free money part. So I know you've bear with me so far, and I appreciate it. Bear with me here. It's going to be good. This is a report that just came out. This is a week ago, 2 weeks ago. So on May 1st, there was a great article. Big city dwellers are better off renting than buying a home everywhere, analysis say. Now, what this is telling you is that everywhere in the country right now, it is cheaper to rent than to own. Now, I don't know why they thought that was a revelation. It should always be cheaper to rent than to own. That's kind of the deal, right? You're more invested when you own it. You're building equity, so it's going to cost you more. But this is how far out of whack it's become, and this is the part that really kind of got my attention. So, right, the monthly cost of renting across all 50 of the largest metros' statistical areas is 37% cheaper than buying a typical home. This is according to Bankrate. They did this study, and Bankrate does pretty good studies. As of February, the typical monthly mortgage payment for a median-priced home in the U.S. was $2,703, while the typical monthly rent nationwide was $1,979. So on average, about $800 a month more to own than to buy, which it'd be nice if it was that low here. Let me give you some other statistics. Worst places in the country. 21 of the 50 largest U.S. metros, the typical monthly cost is over 50% more, and in some cases, over 180% more. So if you are looking in San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley, California area, the average monthly rent is $3,024. Now, I do take exception to this because I know that part of the world pretty well. I don't know any place in San Francisco you're renting anything for $3,024 a month. But let's roll with Bankrate. $3,024 a month, while the typical mortgage in that area is $8,486 a month for a yield spread of 180.7%. It costs you 180.7% more to own in a monthly payment than it is to rent. Now, again, I think it's a little off, but I don't quibble with the conclusion. In San Francisco, it is much, much cheaper to rent than it is to own because the average sales price is so high. In San Jose, Sunnyvale, if you're actually going to move south a little bit, get yourself a break. Not so. The average monthly rent is $3,255 a month, so even higher. And the average mortgage payment is $8,539 a month for a 162% gap. So more expensive and almost as wide a gap in the San Jose area. Let's move up the coast a little bit to Seattle. I like Seattle. Seattle's gorgeous. Seattle, Tacoma, Bellevue. The average monthly rent is $2,191. Mortgage, $4,930. Salt Lake City, Utah. Perhaps you want to go west or go east rather. $1,673 for a typical rental payment. Typical mortgage payment, $3,161. So that's Salt Lake. Austin. If you're Texas bound, let's see, average monthly rent, $1,753 compared with $3,269 in a mortgage payment. Now, in the Northeast and the Midwest, where cost of living tend to be lower, they had smaller gaps, but it was still cheaper to rent than to buy. In Detroit, Dearborn, Michigan, typical monthly rent is $1,395 a month, where the mortgage payment is $1,423. With numbers like that, you'd be nuts not to buy in Dearborn. Pittsburgh, $1,415 a month on average, $1,488 a month for a mortgage payment. But you get kind of the idea here. In our area, according to Rate Cafe, who's got pretty good data on this, the average SCV apartment rent is now $2,456 a month. That, by the way, is 46% higher than the national average. Only 14% of apartments in the Santa Clarita Valley are $2,000 a month or below. 86% are above $2,000 per month. So if you have ideas about renting an apartment in Santa Clarita Valley and you think your budget is going to be under $2,000, I wish you the best of luck. SCV housing is approximately 30% renters and 70% owner-occupied, which is much higher than the rest of the state. Most of the state of California, it is about a 60-30 break. In some places, it is 70-30 renters to owners. So we're a little ahead of the curve there, although we're also ahead of the curve as far as prices and monthly costs as well. According to Zillow, if you add single-family homes, the average monthly rent is now in Santa Clarita is $4,500 a month for a single-family home. So still higher than apartments, so about twice what an apartment's going to run you. But a single-family home, this is 3-bedroom roughly, something 3-bedroom, 1,200 to 1,500 square feet, something like that. It's going to run you roughly, on average now, $4,500 a month. For a 4-bedroom or greater, that number jumps to $5,080 per month. So those are our rents here. You're running a $4,500 to $5,000 a month for a single-family home. You're certainly going to be about $2,500 to $3,000 a month for an apartment, and a decent apartment's going to run you the same, for about $4,000 a month. Those are the rental values. So the average home price in the Santa Clarita Valley is now $988,000 year over year, obviously a little lower this month. That's 6.6% higher than this time last year. The average monthly payment, $6,068 a month. Those are our numbers. The average monthly rent on a house like this is going to be about $5,080 a month. The average monthly payment, $6,068 a month. So for $1,000 more a month, you own the house. Now here is the punchline. In the last 3.5 years, in our area, we have seen prices appreciate nearly 30%. So let's say you bought a $700,000 house 3.5 years ago. That house right now is about $1 million house. That's a $300,000 price appreciation. Even if you were paying $1,000 a month more to own than to rent, if it was $2,000 a month more, you are still way ahead because the equity position, not using an amortization schedule, this guy's been yelling at me online about this, doesn't even understand an amortization schedule is not how you figure out the value of a house. But anyway, not using an amortization schedule to buy down the debt, to pay down the debt, because you're not going to pay down the debt on a mortgage in the first 3 years a whole heck of a lot, if any. But you're going to get it in appreciation. That's the big number. And with the market starting to stabilize, I think those appreciation days are going to start to slow down. They just are. But the matrix in our valley, because our rent prices are so high, the cost to own a home is not that much higher than the rent. If the average rent in Santa Clarita was $2,500 a month and the average mortgage payment was $6,000 a month, I could see that. You'd stay renting, of course. But with the average rent if you're in a house is roughly $5,000 a month, $5,080, and the average mortgage is $6,068. Now that's 20% down, 80% loan to value, so you have to have a good sized down payment to make that work. But how do you not own? How do you not do that? For $1,000 a month, $12,000 a year more on average than you'd be paying to rent the same property, how are you not buying it? And the answer to that is most people don't have the money to get into the house. They don't have the down payment. They don't have the closing costs. Sometimes it's about qualifying as well, which we can also help you out. So here is the answer. Here's the part you've been waiting for. Free money to buy a house. We have something that we've been doing in my office for decades now called the Rental Rebate Program. Why called Rental Rebate? Because I like alliteration and I named it. So the Rental Rebate Program. And what it is, the way it works, it's very simple. The way it works is we can give you 10%. Notice I said give you. You're not paying it back. It's a grant. We give it to you. 10% of the rent you have already paid to buy a house. So if you're renting at $5,000 a month, 10% of that is $500 a month. If you've been there for a year, that's $6,000 we can give you. You've been there for 2, it's $12,000 we can give you. So we're not talking about an insubstantial amount of money. And you can use it for just about anything. It is not a credit. It is real money. It is cash. So I've had clients most people use it to buy down their interest rate these days, or they'll use it to pay closing costs. I've had clients use it to put in carpet. I've had clients use it to put in bathtubs, all sorts of stuff. But the point is, it is real money and it costs you nothing. You do not pay it back. It's a combination. We do it in conjunction with our lenders that we work with. Everybody kind of pitches in because everybody asks where the money comes from. It comes from partially from the Realtors Commission. We pony up. It comes from the Lenders Commission. They do the same. And sometimes we'll ask other affiliates to help us out as well, depending on the case. But the whole idea is renting is not a long-term win. I'm telling you this as somebody who is a landlord, so I love renters. But I have clients who rent from me, and I tell them the day I rent them the property, if not before, thank you for running the property. I appreciate it, but understand this is not good for your long-term financial health. It's great for mine because I'm the owner of the property, but it is not good for yours if you're a renter. So everybody has to start somewhere, and maybe you're just here for a little while or something like that. But ultimately, in our area, just because of the numbers are what they are, I think you're nuts to rent and not to own. I also think the state of California is really trying to push people into this idea that renting is somehow a permanent state of being, and that is dangerous. We have more renters and fewer owners in California than any other of the 50 states. New York and us are close, but that's about it. Every place else, the ratio of owners to renters is much, much higher. In Santa Clarita, it is low. And by the way, I am 53 years old. That means I was born in 1971. They started keeping these numbers in 1970. So for the entire course of my lifetime, the ratios in California have been skewing more every year. They skew to more renters and fewer owners. Every single year, the number of renters goes up, the number of owners goes down. I should say percentage. The percentage of renters goes up and the percentage of owners goes down. So, and that is a permanent state of being that we cannot afford to keep going with. I mean, otherwise you're going to have the entire state looking like Manhattan. Unless you're incredibly wealthy, you're not buying a property in Manhattan. You have to rent them because the owners of the buildings aren't selling them. People who own apartments there don't want to sell them because they go up every year. They're ridiculous. That is our future here in California if we're not careful. The rates that we're looking at, the disparity in rental versus owning rates in places like San Francisco and San Jose will be repeated. They absolutely will be, and we're looking at that as well. So you have an opportunity now in our area, in the San Fernando Valley as well, most of Southern California, where you could buy a house and your monthly payment would not be that much higher than the rent would have been. And that's what you have to take advantage of. Now, how do you get there? Give me a call. We'll be happy to help you out. Again, free money. We can give you 10% of the rent you have already paid to go buy a house. So if you're renting it, if you're one of the lucky people and you're renting a townhouse and you want to buy your first condo and you're paying $2,000 a month, even something that cheap, you're still spending $24,000 a year. That is $2,400 that we can give you. You've been there for 2 years. That's $4,800. And again, it's free. You do not pay it back. So if your situation is you don't have a down payment, we might be able to help you out with that. There are also other programs we use as well that can do that. If you don't have the money for the closing cost, we can help you out with that. In other words, the excuse of, I'd like to buy a house, but I don't have the money, which I hear a lot, and which is perfectly reasonable, is just that, is an excuse. If you decide that that is what you want to do, and you can afford rent in our town, if you're renting a place here now, odds are pretty good you can afford to buy one. Not everybody, that's for sure, because every situation is different. You still got to qualify for a loan and all that other good stuff. But the odds are still in our area, and this won't be true forever, but in our area, you can still buy a house, and the rent and the monthly mortgage payment on that house will still not be that far out of whack compared to the rent. It's going to be higher than rent, but you also get a tax write-off. So I didn't even touch on that. When you own the property, you get to write off. And you want to talk to your accountant about this, or we can supply one for you if you need. But because I try not to give tax advice if I can avoid it. But in our area, if you own a property, and anywhere you own a property, you get to write off it's called the mortgage interest deduction, and it's the biggest single write-off you get every month. So if you can write off the payment and the difference you get in taxes, because you can often change your withholding, a lot of the times we find that clients come in and they think they're going to have to pay more than they were paying in rent, and by the time they own the property and you change the withholding and stuff, because they now have a bigger tax write-off, it actually balances out. So again, the numbers are very favorable. They won't stay this way forever, but they are that way now. They have been that way for a bit, and you really should take advantage of it, especially as the interest rate starts to come down and as prices start to normalize. Now is the time to start looking at that. If you're not ready to buy a house now, that makes perfect sense, but get into the game. Get yourself pre-qualified. Get into the program. Let's see what we can do for you. Let's set you up so that we know a month from now, 6 months from now, a year from now, whatever it is for you and your personal situation, that we're working toward that goal. We take clients in all the time, especially first-time buyers who are nowhere near ready to buy, who had no idea what they were doing. And the first thing we do is we educate you. We get you into some of these programs that provide free money for you, and ours is not the only one out there. There are others as well that we can get you into. We get you hooked up with a lender. We get a pre-qual done. We get everything put in place for you. And then if it takes 2 years for you to get there, great. We'll check in with you. That's fine. We'll keep you on track. But the whole idea is to get into the process. So if you're thinking about buying a house, if you've ever thought about buying a house, it would do you some good to give me a call. I had a client, 2 weeks ago, we got a new client in who's got a FICO score that I'm not kidding when I say this, it is too low to report. Meaning her credit is so bad, he's coming out of a divorce, her credit is so bad, so badly damaged that we can't even get a credit score on her. It is too low to report. So she's not buying a house this year. But we're going to get credit cleanup started with her. She's going to start saving money. We got all this stuff put together for her so she knows what she needs to do every single month. And if she does that for the next 6 to 12 months, she'll be ready to buy a house. She'll have the money, she'll have the credit, she'll be ready to go. And that's not a bad turnaround from, contemplating filing bankruptcy, which she doesn't have to do. At this point, contemplating filing bankruptcy coming out of divorce to 12 months later buying your first house on your own, that's a pretty good turnaround. And I think 12 months is a pretty good time to make that happen. It's pretty quick, I think, all things considered. So that's the kind of stuff we do. So if you're thinking about buying a house, give me a call. Let me give out that number again, 661-714-1400. Again, 661-714-1400. That's my personal cell phone. You can reach me at that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can also reach me through the station. Go to the website through KHTS, hometownstation.com. You can reach me through there. All kinds of, also have a very unique last name. It's spelled Szerman, despite being pronounced Sherman. So you can always just Google that and find me there. I'm pretty easy to find. But we can help you out because I'm on a crusade. I have been since the day I started in real estate. I believe everyone should own a house. I know what it's done for me. Luckily for me, I bought my first house at 18. And I've done fairly well financially ever since because I've had the house, and that one house became 2, became 4, et cetera. And there have been, I lost a lot in 2008 as well. There are ups and downs, but the point is I got into the game. And as a result, I'm now in a position where I'm okay. And I wouldn't say I'm rich by any stretch of the imagination, but I'm doing all right. And we're not worried about keeping a roof over our head these days, which is nice. So you can do the same exact thing. There's nothing I have done that you cannot do, and frankly, do it better and easier than I did, than my clients in my first year did, because we've learned. We know how to do this stuff now. There's more stuff going on. We've been running this program, by the way, for the better part of 25 years. The Rental Rebate Program. The other one's called Resale Renovation. I should have thought that through. I never knew I'd be advertising it back to back. But yeah, so if you're into buying a house, give me a call. We will literally give you money. We will fix your credit, and we will get you into a house. So give us a call. Free money, fix the credit, get you hooked up with a lender, get you into a house. There is always a way. Where there's a will, there's a way in all things. So if you're interested, give me a call, 661-714-1400. I'm Rich Szerman. Now, the last part of the show today, we're going to talk about money to sell a house. Now that if you're looking to buy a house, especially if you're a renter, you just heard all these great things we can do for you. Let's talk about what we can do to sell a house. Because when we have somebody who wants to sell a house, we have a program called the Resale Renovation Program, which we use to help fix up people's houses. So there's an article here I'm going to find for you in just a second. That says that if you are looking to, did I put it on the back of this? Of course it is. If you're looking to sell a house, for the last couple of years, because the inventory has been so depressed, if you put anything on the market, it's going to sell. And you're going to do as well as you're going to do with it as what the market will bear, But interesting came out May 6th from Bloomberg. Easy for me to say. Cash-stretched new home buyers are drawing a line at fixer-uppers. Of about 1,400 resale agents nationwide surveyed by the John Burris Research and Consulting Firm, 99% said they've seen homes for sale that need repair or updates, with 2/3 of agents saying listings showed deficiencies in at least 4 different areas, including outdated kitchens and bathrooms, roof repair, paint, and carpet. The takeaway, desperate home buyers aren't that desperate. Fixer-uppers can stay on the market longer and sometimes require discounts, with elevated prices and mortgage rates already straining the budgets of Americans looking to purchase a home. Quote, when agents identify the repairs and updates needed to make listing homes ready to live in, we were shocked at the scope. Buyers want homes that are move-in ready. And that is the lesson there. Right now and for the foreseeable future, buyers want homes that are move-in ready. The buyers that are out there know they're paying a much, much higher interest rate than just a few years ago, and they're doing it anyway. And the one thing they want more than anything else is they don't want to make repairs. Because right now, if you have a house that needs repairs, it's showing shoddy, it's going to cost you a lot more than it would cost to make the repairs to get that house sold. In other words, this is a true story, client we're working with right now, if you have a house that needs carpet and paint and would otherwise be worth $1 million, that house right now is worth about $930,000. Those are the numbers. And it certainly doesn't cost $70,000 to carpet and paint a house. So we'll go in there with the Resale Renovation Program. We will spend the money. Again, you do not pay it back. We will spend the money. We will carpet and paint the house. We'll get it done. And it's mutual. The client picks out the carpet. They can pick out the contractor, all kinds of stuff. There are rules you have to follow. There are restrictions. But we try to keep it as easy as we can. And we'll get the house carpeted and painted. And by getting it carpeted and painted, now they got a much better shot at getting their $1 million rather than having to sell it for $930, right? So it makes a whole lot more sense. So what you look for is any sort of these programs is you look for at least a 2-to-1 return, meaning that for any dollar we spend, we expect to make at least $2 more in the sales price. And that's not hard to find. Most things, especially carpet and paint, are a 3 or a 4-to-1 return, depending on where we're starting from. So some of those selling now think they can sell a house at a high price even without making upgrades and improvements. This is what the survey found. But adding on the cost of repairs can be too much to bear for potential buyers pushing their limits. Many buyers stretching financially to purchase a home and the lack of the ability and desire to tackle remodeling after closing, according to this report. Buyers don't want to fix up houses unless it is way in their financial interest to do so. So you want to sell a house at 5 or 10% below market value, 20% below market value, you can certainly get away with that with a house that needs work. But if not, you're going to have to fix it up. So that's where we step in. Because a lot of times people selling houses that are not in the greatest of shape, the house is not in the greatest of shape because they didn't have the money to take care of what needs to be taken care of. My clients with the carpet, it's not a secret to them. They know it needs carpet. They know it needs paint. They know they're selling their house. They didn't have the money to make those repairs. We do. So we're going to tell you how the program works when we come back. We're going to go to break. We're going to hear from some more sponsors. Please listen through the break. We like when you guys do that. We like when you support the sponsors. The sponsors like it a lot. I'm Rich Szerman. You're a hometown station, KHTS 98.1 AM 1220. You're listening to The Fix with Rich at yourhometownstation.com. Please listen to the break. We'll talk, and now we're going to talk about free money for buyers. We talked about kind of the stuff that we see with sellers. When we come back, we're going to talk about how we give sellers money as well to fix up their houses for sale. Houses in the best shape, sell the quickest for the most money. Just keep that in mind. I'm Rich Szerman, your host. Listen to the break. We'll be right back. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. You're listening to The Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Szerman, on KHTS 98.1 FM, AM 1220, your hometown station. And we've been talking about free money for real estate. We spent the first part of the show here talking about some of the problems that we see with buyers for real estate and how we choose to fix those and usually throw money at the problem. So we talked about how we have free money for people who are looking to buy a house. So if you're looking to buy a house, especially if you're a renter, there are other programs we have access to, but we have one internal to my office. We can give you 10% of the rent you have already paid back to buy a house. We can also help you fix your credit, get you all together. So if you want to buy a house, we'll get you there. It may take some time, but we will get you there. So give me a call if you're looking at that. Before the break, we were talking about free money to fix up houses and what we do to help sellers get their houses fixed up for sale. Very simple axiom here. Houses in the best shape sell the quickest for the most money. Just that simple. Houses in the best shape sell the quickest and for the most money. Now, if you agree with what I said there, I hope you do, because all the data backs that, then it shouldn't be hard for you to figure out that you want to get your house in the best shape possible when you go to sell it. Again, not that I'm telling you anything you don't know, but the numbers support this. Because it used to be if you had, you needed $10,000 worth of work in a house, you'd sell it for $12,000, $13,000 less, a little bit of a hit, not much. But these days, with the interest rate where it is, buyers becoming more picky, that has changed because you're looking at roughly double the amount of the repair, if not more, depending on what it looks like, for a buyer to get interested in your property. If they're not going to buy the one up the road. And with more inventory coming to the market, there's no glut of inventory. We're still pretty much a seller's market because there's just not enough inventory out there. But still, buyers are being more picky because buyers feel they can afford to wait because they think the interest rate is going to come down. I agree. I just don't know when. So let me talk about a couple of successes we've had. I've talked about a couple of these before, and I'm going to give you the addresses, so feel free to look them up if you'd like. 1533 Rhododendron Drive, sold about a year ago, had appraisal of everything else. The house, identical house across the street, sold for $80,000 less. We sold that one for $815 a year ago. Now it's probably worth about $850, $860. So the buyer still did very, very well, but the seller did even better because they were looking at selling that house for $80,000 less. Now, in that house, we spent about $20,000 fixing it up, carpet, paint, backyard, all kinds of fun stuff, some mechanical repairs, and they sold the house for $80,000 more than the exact same property, actually, frankly, with a better view, the other property across the street. So their house, without a view, sold for $80,000 more than the house across the street with a view. Why? Because we put money into the house, we fixed it up, and we're in good shape. Here's another one, 19115 Stagg Street. Sold right around the same time period. Sold it for $830,000. We were told the best we could possibly get out of that house, was $780,000. Well, we put some money into it, sold it for $830,000. We did some work in the kitchen, repaired some tiles, some stuff like that. There was a solar system, as I recall, that needed some work. But we got all that stuff taken care of. I think it was solar system. Anyway, got all that taken care of for them. We spent maybe $10,000 on the house in repairs, and they sold the thing for $50,000 more. That's a pretty good ratio. Spend 10, make 50. That's a pretty good ratio, pretty good rate of return. 27415 Laurel Glen sold for $720. We put about $5,000 into it, didn't need much. Sold for $20,000 more than it otherwise would have appraised for, or had been appraised for. So yeah, spent 5 to make 20. Again, pretty good deal. It's the sellers. We're spending my money. We're not spending the seller's money. So for the seller, it's to the seller. It costs them nothing, zero. 1170 Caitlin Street. That's in Simi Valley. It was a townhouse in Simi Valley. We sold it for $625. We were told the best we could do is $590, $595 tops. Sold it for $625 because we put about 10 grand into it, and so it sold for $30,000 more than it otherwise would. Are you getting the trend line here? Are you getting the idea, listeners? I hope you are, because we spent a very small amount of money comparatively, which again cost the seller nothing, zero, zip, nothing. We pay for this. We pay for it completely. We decide what repairs are going to be done mutually. We decide on the contractors and things mutually. I'll put it this way. All the rules and regulations for this program all fit on one page. The application has all the rules on it. It's one page. It's that simple. But we put some money into these properties, and as a result, they sell for a lot more money. Most of the people I run across who are selling properties, especially right now, coming out of a difficult economy, don't have the money. If they did, they would have spent it already. We've got one coming up here shortly in Friendly Valley where it's going to be a good one because right now the house is probably worth somewhere in the 270s. By the time we're done, we're just getting started with this project. By the time we're done, my guess is we're looking at around a $350 sales price, and we're not going to spend that much money on it. It's not going to cost that much to carpet and paint it, clean up some walls and clean up some cabinets and things like that. I was out there earlier this week taking a look at it and starting to get the repairs list together. So we'll do well with that. Here's another one, 28702 Citrus Place. I think this was 2 years ago. Sold for $760, which is $50,000 more than we thought it would sell for. This one's my favorite. I can forget this one. 4318 Elena Place in Palmdale. We got an appraisal on it at $530. We sold it for $640. Now in that house, we spent some money fixing that up. We replaced cabinets and all kinds of stuff. So we spent about $60,000 on that. But we made $110,000 more than we otherwise would. Spend $60, make $110,000 more. Again, a pretty good ratio. I went a little crazy with some of the work on it, and that was my fault. There's some repairs I wanted to make. So if you are looking to sell a house, give me a call, same phone number, 661-714-1400, and hear what I have to say on the topic. You don't have to hire me. Hear what I have to say on the topic, and what I will explain to you is basically we will spend money on your house. You do not repay it. We will put money into your house so that we know we can sell it for more money, and we can sell it quicker, which is good for everybody. So yeah, if you're looking to sell a house, give me a call. We will give you money to fix up your house to get it sold. If you're looking to buy a house, give me a call. We will give you money to get you into a house. I mean, I don't know how much simpler I can make it. This is literally free money to buy a house and free money to sell a house. We can cover you coming and going. Real estate is just too expensive in this area. It's nice that it is because it makes a very, very good investment, but it's just too expensive. So we try to Real Estate Fix. I'm about fixing problems. I have been for years. One of the ways to fix this is you put money into it because commissions are fairly large in our area because the prices are fairly large. There is no reason you can't make a little bit less from my point of view and do a little bit more. It's a volume discount. That's the way these things work. But the way it manifests is we fix up your house. So if you want to buy a house, give me a call. We'll give you money. We'll get you going. If you want to sell a house, give me a call. We'll put money into your house. And if you have a house that's perfect, you don't need to put money in, then we'll just lower the commission. Either way, you come out ahead if you're a seller. Give me a call. I'm at 661-714-1400. Again, my name is Rich Szerman. I'm with Radius Agent, for those of you who are keeping score. 661-714-1400, Rich Szerman. I'm the guy who puts money into property. I'm the guy who gives you money to sell a house. And I'm the guy who hosts a radio show on Fridays. So give me a call, 661-714-1400. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it very, very much. Have a great week. I'm Rich Szerman, your host, The Real Estate Fix, KHTS 98.1 AM 1220, your hometown station. Thank you guys for listening. Be good humans and have a good week.